on the table.
starten wir dann offiziell den ersten Lauf.
Kathrin, kannst du jetzt auch mal zur Autogrammstunde hochkommen?
Schauen wir ja.
Saturday in Altenberg in Saxony, and it is the beginning of the bobsleigh weekend. Good morning, everybody, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us. Morning, afternoon, evening, dead of night. Always a joy to know that people are watching online as we get ready for the 7th and final Monobob World Cup of the season. Martin Haven and Nathan Crumpton trackside with you to watch the action for this final race before the Olympic Games. And of course, the Crystal Globes up for grabs. And Nathan, this track, we saw exciting races in all 3 skeleton competitions yesterday. It's not going to be any easier in the Monobob.
No, I don't think it will be. And yes, you were right, though. Such phenomenal racing yesterday. So many emotions. End of the season, as you mentioned, and Olympic qualifications on the line. Here we go at the top of the track. That is curve 1. Nice, mellow right-hander. And then into curve 2, also mellow with a long straightaway after it. Here's where the action begins. 3 into 4. 4 is the Omega corner. Extraordinarily difficult for skeleton, not as bad for bobsled though. Then we have the upper labyrinth here, also a place to really find your form, get into a rhythm. Here's 9. 9 can be a little bit tricky, and then you have a long straightaway before Kreisel. Kreisel, one of the most difficult corners in the world, 360 degrees, spotting your exit, then entering the lower labyrinth. This lower labyrinth is where a lot of these sleds may have problems. Notoriously difficult for bobsleds down there. Little uphill straightaway into 15, then 16, a double pressure left-hander, and then the Ziel curve, the finish curve right here, where you cross the line and hope you have a good run.
Yeah, that final corner and this finish area added in the late 90s. The track reopened again for the World Championships in 2000. And previously, it was just a little bit shorter. Now, air temperature's hovering around freezing today. It was about 4 or 5 degrees yesterday. Ice temperature just minus 1.5. But the ice has been like mirror. It's been polished marble all week long, or certainly yesterday for racing. We had track records in women's skeleton, we had track records in men's skeleton, we had track records in the team competition as well. So it's entirely possible, although it is a bit windy and a bit misty, that we might get some fast runs again today because the ice is in superb condition. Ralph Mender, the Ice Meister, and his crew always do a good job. This track is one that's a bit fearsome, particularly for bobsled, as you say. Melly Hasler not here, but Katy Bile representing on her behalf. yeah, 11, 12, 13, 14 could be really, really problematic. We did have crashes in training. Hopefully everybody will get down safely here today in the race itself. But look at the track there. It does look like they've had the floor polishers out. And in fact, yesterday in the presentation ceremony, it was Ralph Mender who gave away the trophies for the track records, because he's the man that makes it possible. So in our heat today, we have 20 sleds, starting with Nigeria's Simi Adiagbo and ending with Bianca Ribby. Ribby's first World Cup of the season, her last since St. Moritz in January last year, her first since St. Moritz in January last year. And Simi Adiagbo, similarly, only one World Cup this year. Seventh and final IBSF Women's Monobob World Cup of the season at a foggy Altenberg in Germany. Nigeria's Simi Adiagbo, former skeleton racer turned bobsledder, now aiming to try and put the African nation back into the Olympic Games for the first time in bobsleigh.
Yeah, Simi, one of these athletes who just loves to slide. It's gone skeleton to monobob here, getting us kicked off with a 6:21 start. For reference, the start record is a 5:92 by Cynthia from Canada.
Yeah, Cynthia Peer, one of the start monsters. It may not be start record territory. Through corner 4, key for speed down to the Kreisel. It's a nice 4-5 transition for Simi.
Yeah, she's getting a lot of height here. Takes a little bit of tap on the sled's right side there. Entering curve 9 here. It's a little pressure and a half. Flops off a bit. Takes a little tap, but spotting this entry here into Kreisel.
360 degrees. You come out looking for the red flag at the end. That's your key to steer off. And down through 11 and 12, neatly through.
Ooh, yeah, just getting a little bit sideways there on the straightaway. This is where it's really tricky for bobsled, as you mentioned, Martin. This is where a lot of those crashes occur. Now this big, tricky triple left-hand corner combination to take you to the finish. Simi finishing in 1 minute with 50 hundredths of a second.
Yeah, there's her coach, the legend, Sandra Kyriasis. This was her home track for so many years. Actually, then moved to Winterberg. And Kathleen Martini, one of the legends of Saxon sliding, is our race director here this weekend as well. So lots of history here. 11-12. And then she comes out and looks like she's got out clean, but I think she just caught a short wall here.
Yes.
This is 13-14, isn't it?
So that was 11-12, and then it was off of 12, just
Yeah.
carrying that pressure, and then just skids sideways with the sled just before curve 13 there.
Yeah, looked like a little bit of ice sticking out from the wall, snagged her. Next up, Georgeta Popescu for Romania. And Georgeta, youth Olympian. She was the youth Olympic champion in St. Moritz in 2020. And like everybody else, looking to try and secure a spot in the Games for the second ever Monobob Olympic competition.
Gets her run, kicked off with a 6:39 there, and boy, she ran it deep. She ran it almost to the ends of the groove there, one of the deepest runs that we've seen. That's the thing, you have to get in the sled, though, before the grooves end, because then it is sheer sheet ice that you have to navigate, and you got to be in that front seat, hanging onto those D-rings and steering down the ice track.
4-5 looks pretty straightforward in a bobsleigh. It's a really crucial element of the track, in skeleton particularly. This straight can often really murder your time if you don't come out straight to the Kreisel.
Correct. That 9 to 10 transition is critical. There's the exit out of Kreisel. Also have to have that good exit now into this tricky lower labyrinth, behind by only 200ths of a second, but better speed.
Yep, so she overhauls the Nigerian sled. Romania with a slender advantage. Little late flop 15 into 16, but keeping the speed alive, and across the line, 23 hundredths up, 60.27 slide.
Yeah, so solid building of speed there all throughout the run. Cleaner than Simi on the previous run there. Despite the start deficit, despite having a slower start than the Nigerian athlete, she was able to build speed all the way down and takes the lead for the moment.
Theodora Vlad, her brakewoman in tomorrow's race, helping with the sled at the bottom.
There's the Kreisel, so I have to bring the sled off the corner there. As you mentioned, there's a red flag hanging around that third pressure, the third oscillation. That is the visual cue that a lot of these drivers use to bring it off of the corner. Now this is inside the Kreisel there, and you can see that third pressure, and there's that red flag right at the end of the shot.
That replaces a red rag actually tied up there once upon a time by Altenberg legend Harold Tudai, so that he knew when to drive off. And basically you go into the Kreisel and you're sort of craning above yourself, looking all the way around for that flag. So our third starter in our field of 20 from Belgium, Kelly van Petegem, had a good run out in St. Moritz as well. She's ducked in and out of the World Cup, picking up points on the lower tier of sliding in the Europe Cup. So 15th place in Cortina, missed the cut in Winterberg, 21st in that windy, snowy race, but 19th position in St. Moritz last week.
And loading into the sled with her start time, 6:31. So also not quite as fast as Simi, who set the pace on the start here. But takes a little bit of a tap and a skid there out of 2, and then another tap and skid before 4.
Now the problem with the Monobob sled is it's the same size as a 2-man or 2-woman sled, but there's only one person in it. So there's no weight over the rear axle, or very little weight over the rear axle. And if the runners on the back are too fat for the conditions, they don't give enough grip, then the sled skids around a lot at the back. And Kelly is fighting both ends of this sled at the same time.
Yeah, big waves there in Kreisel, now into the lower labyrinth, falling behind by about 0.3 of a second, second fastest speed. Not sure it's going to be enough to take the lead here.
No, holding that 0.3 disadvantage, but she hasn't got the speed over Georgetta Popescu. Popescu had top speed all the way down, apart from the start clock. There's her coach, Anne van Nieuwenhuis, on the left, and will be sitting alongside in the booth this afternoon for the 2-man competition. And Simi Audiagbo in second, Kelly van Petegem slips to 3rd. So 60.65, nobody yet below the 1-minute marker, but we should get that soon. Gets an unfortunate touch there. As you can see, there's a swelling in the ice there. Just snagged the front of the sled, but look at the way it's skidding around here, Nathan.
Yeah, just not quite the control that you need. As you mentioned, that back end of a monobob just doesn't have the grip. A lot of these athletes, they put the sharper runners, the narrower runners on the rear to try and give them more control, but even then, it's very twitchy, very difficult to control compared to that 2-man sled.
That was a fight, wasn't it? Especially that slow-mo in the crowd. You think, oh, that's not fun. Next up, Melissa Lotholtz. Now we should see some of the faster runners. The first 3 are from outside the top 10 in the World Cup standings. Look at that classic low heel drive of a confirmed push athlete turn driver.
Oh, 6:07 as well. That is the fastest start that we've seen so far. As you mentioned, just great technique, low driving, powerful strides here from Melissa as she navigates a nice clean 1, 2, 3 so far.
So many drivers in this field started as push athletes, and that gives them that power that you need to get the monobob underway. Nice smooth line so far. Looks like she's got decent control through the upper labyrinth.
Oh, little high there on the end of 9. 9 is that weird little pressure and a half corner. That's what it wants to do. She didn't quite control it as needed, and so she's down on speed as a result. Hopefully the top half of the track is enough for her to maintain the lead.
Well, still in the green. She was 5,500s up. Still just about half a second clear of Popescu.
Very nice off of 14 there through 15. Now it's 16 double pressure, 17, and across the finish line for Melissa in 59.81, first athlete to go under a minute.
Yeah, there you go. So we're into our top 10 in the World Cup rankings. And Melissa Lotholtz actually lying 7th. She is the best placed of the Canadian sliders. In the top 6 in every race except Sigulda, where she finished in 18th place. So she's had a bunch of 6th and 5th place positions.
Here we go. That looks like the exit of 9. Yep. So, yep, just that second little mini half pressure, and she just gets too high on it, flops off, and then smacks that slider's right wall with a little bit of a skid, but then corrects it about halfway down the straightaway.
Yeah. The tap is one thing. The skids are what really hurt your speed. So breathless stuff from Melissa Lotholtz. Next up, Kathi Beil of Austria. And what a season she's been having in the monobob. Silver in Lillehammer, bronze in Sigulda, bronze last week again in St. Moritz, and a European Championship silver medal as a result. And a very impressive performance in the monobob this season. Not her favoured discipline. The irony is that it's going better than the women's bobsleigh for her.
Yeah, Kathi here taking a deep run, 6:10 to start her run, puts her in contention. One of the veterans here in the field, been around longer than most of these athletes here. Not quite as long as, say, Alana Myers-Taylor, Kaylee Humphreys, but she does have a ton of experience, and she's looking to have a good run here on this intimidating German track, only 300ths behind.
Yeah, not exactly a start monster, so she has to make up in driving what she doesn't have in that push. Nice exit out of Tudai, corner 9, down to the Kreisel.
Yeah, little tap, but best speed, 109.9 here for Kati, who, by the way, have to shout out some hilarious Instagram material from her. Her social media game is on point.
Yeah, she is just an absolute live wire. Best speed of all, and a slender lead, but that skid through 14 to 15. Look, she ducks ahead on every straight. She's just trying to save any 100 possible. 1700s up, 59.64. That could well be a top 6 run.
It could indeed. Opening up a little bit of a lead there when you start getting out to that 0.2 margin, then you're getting into some real numbers here. So could be fighting for podium or wider podium finish here for Kati.
And you can see with their speed, they're coming further and further up the track the quicker they've been going down at the bottom. So this is out of 9. Tudai onto this critical straight.
Yeah, just the lightest of brush, basically a redirect, and then just a tiny little double bunker tap before Kreisel. Now in Kreisel, there's that first pressure, the dip, there's the second pressure, second oscillation, then the third before you spot the flag and then steer out. Here's that exit out of 14. So takes that little tap, then the little skid over the brow, but straightens it and has a good run.
So next up is one of our veterans in the field, Alana Myers-Taylor, World Championship bronze medalist in Lake Placid at the end of last season, Olympic silver medalist behind champion Kaylee Humphries. And like Humphries, this woman cannot stop winning medals. Mother of 2, both kids are on tour with her, and she just keeps slaying this. 6:12 start.
Solid start for Alana. Again, one of the athletes who's been in and around bobsled and sliding for not years, but decades at this point. We actually saw her warming up. She had her warm-up pants on from the 2014 Sochi Olympics, just to give you a little clue there.
Yeah. Well, we've all got that T-shirt in our closet, don't we? But yeah, she's got decades of stuff. So behind from the start, but only 400s behind Kati Bile. Brings it into a 300s lead by the Kreisel.
Yeah, narrow lead, but that skid there before Kreisel might have hurt her. So yeah, she drops back into the red, 500s back, and third best speed. She's going to need to be incredibly clean through this bottom bit of the track.
And she is incredibly clean. 11, 12, 13, 14. Nice clean run into 15. Little flop off the end. This might be enough for the lead at the line. It's going to be close. It's not close.
No, just bled out a little bit there at the bottom after Kreisel. I don't know if we can see it on the television screen here, but yeah, just lost a little bit of speed there.
Well, now all the sleds are identical. They're made by a German manufacturer, so everybody's sled is the same, but you can change the platforms that the runners sit on, the runner shoes. You can make them softer, firmer. There's like a choice of 3 different textures to give you the feel you want, and you choose your own runners as well. And it may be that the track is maybe faster, maybe not as fast as they were expecting after some fairly damp days in training where there was a lot more grip than people expected.
It could be. There are her problems. That's exiting 9, going into Kreisel, the taps, the skids, and then just did not come out with enough speed from Kreisel to build on the lead.
Now then, we've seen a World Championship bronze medalist. Here's our World Championship gold medalist from Lake Placid, Keisha Love. 4 years ago, pushing on the back of sleds in the Olympic Games. She goes, or she will go, to Cortina as a definite medal contender as a driver.
And a 5:94, fastest push that we've seen so far. The only athlete to get under that 6-second barrier. She's a great athlete and has successfully made this transition into the driver's seat.
Successfully and quickly as well. 5:94 start, 200ths off the start record.
That's some great athleticism. And opening up the lead, ooh, takes a little tap there, but about a quarter of a second in the bank. How much can she hold on by? Oh, little high off the end of 9 and a big skid there.
And this is the lack of experience that Keisha has on these European tracks. You know, she went back to Lake Placid where she spent so many trips learning to drive, and that played really well for her. But here in Europe, it's her 3rd season in Europe, so her 3rd time in Altenberg.
And very nice straightaway there, 14 to 15. This will help her, but I think she just bled out too much before Kreisel and in Kreisel.
Yep. That long skid down the straight. fifth fastest, 60.37. So at the moment, Katy Bile leads from Melissa Lottholtz and Alana Myers-Taylor. Georgetta Popescu ahead of Keisha Love, but astonishing starting. And she has learned to drive. She and Lisa Buchwitz went to the Olympics in China as push athletes. They're going as genuine medal contenders, both of them, in mono and in women's bobsleigh. And in a 4-year period, that is an astonishing turnaround.
It really is. It's hard to overstate that. It's difficult to learn how to drive these sleds. As demonstrated here, that is that little half pressure on the end of 9 and then takes the tap but doesn't keep it straight, just skidding on down. That's where the lead went.
Well, and you pointed out her two teammates, Alana Myers-Taylor and Kaylee Humphries, who we'll see shortly, are more experienced by about 15 seasons of driving. So she's beating herself up for the mistakes, but, you know, they've got decade and a half of driving experience, getting on for 20 years in Kaylee's case. The 2010 and 2014 women's bobsleigh Olympic champion and the reigning Olympic mono champion as well. And this is a track where Kaylee knows how to win. It's her favorite track on tour.
Yep, 6:17, still in the field at the start, despite being in this in the sport for so long. Great longevity and loves this track. She won 2 gold medals here earlier in the quadrennial cycle.
Yep, in back-to-back race weekends, in between which she flew to San Diego, was sworn in as an American citizen, and flew back. And so jet lag-tastic, she came out and blew them away in the second weekend as well.
And she has the lead here. She brought it back through that upper labyrinth, took a small tap, but straightened the sled out. Excellent exit there out of Kreisel, opening up the lead. Best speed out of Kreisel as well. We're seeing a world-class run here from Kaylee, the veteran.
Yeah, Kaylee is absolutely in charge on this track. She is definitely the woman that you look to beat, start or no start. Top speed at the bottom and a 59.43. So Kaylee Humphries with another demonstration drive there. And the way she made some of those exits look like, what's the problem? Yep. She is literally on rails here, Kaylee.
She is such smooth transitions, so fluid from one corner to the next. Only one little notable tap out of 9 there, but oh, she gives us the thumbs up. Yep, so this is that exit out of 9, which has caused a lot of problems there. She takes one little tap, but she corrects it so quickly. That's the difference. Gives that runner a little flick in the front. You could see them moving around, straightens the sled out, and gets that good entry into Kreisel.
And look at Kreisel. Absolutely flat line all the way through. No oscillations. She's shortening the track there. That's why Formula One drivers don't weave around on the track on the straightaway, because it's not fast. Now, a little bit of a pause here. Why? Okay, there we go. Lisa Buchwitz next. 1 silver, 1 bronze on this track. It's not one of her favorites. Buchwitz, though, the reigning World Cup champion, won half of last year's races. She's been on the podium. She has yet to take a gold this year.
And an excellent start, 5.96, also dipping under that 6-second barrier. Great athleticism. Ooh, a little bit of a drift. It's the banana line, not the straight one there from 2 to 3. Now big waves in 4, corrects it beautifully, and a smooth transition into the upper labyrinth.
All right, so let's see how she deals with the next right-hander, corner 9.
Yeah, this is the tricky spot here. Oh, nicely done. Avoids the wall, brings it back over, and a lead by 0.2 of a second.
But where is the speed? Only the 5th best speed. Kaylee was quicker. So that lead comes down now. She's building speed through 11 and 12. Nice and straight down to 13, 14.
Yep, still in the green because of that start advantage. Dead even with Kaylee Humphries now. Oh, this is so not quite the way that Lisa wanted this run to go.
Or she's going to be behind at the line by a 1/4 of a second, 59.67. Well, that's a gain for the second sled. We've seen quite a big speed drop away at the bottom.
Yeah, a lot of that can go away in Kreisel. As you noted, Kaylee had that great Kreisel, excellent run, smooth transitions. Just ebbing away just a little bit. Here's the start. Great start, as we said, under that 6-second mark, jumping into the sled, tucking in, and then you've got to get in position. You've got to grab those D-rings and control the sled. There's that little wobble there. That's 2 to 3. And then here, now we're looking 11 to 12. That can be a very tricky transition, but she manages it really smoothly, just not quite the speed that she was looking for to be in first.
She was in very good form this morning. Let's see what the day brings. Next up, Bree Walker, lying in second place in our World Cup rankings and just 27 points off the lead. So the way this works is, if Laura Nolte is on the podium, she is the World Cup champion. If Bree wins and Lara is fourth or lower, Bree is the World Cup champion. Here we go, 3 wins for Bree Walker and 1 bronze, 2 wins and 3 other medals for Lara Nolte. That's the narrow gap between them.
6:07 getting her run underway. Solid start here. Coming off that phenomenal win in St. Moritz that we saw last weekend. Great run there for Bree. Can she replicate some of that on a more difficult, more driving intense course here in Altenberg? Upper Labyrinth looking okay. 600ths in the bank.
Yeah, a little skid from 3 to 4 has cost her a bit of that advantage. Let's see if she can open it up on the straight down to the Kreisel. Nice clean exit out of corner 9. 500s up and a whisker quicker than Catty Bile, who had the top speed at that stage.
Yeah, clean out of Kreisel as well. Best speed in, best speed out. That's great. 400ths of a second lead over Kaylee Humphries here. Here's the tricky 14. Little tap 200ths. Oh, this is going to be close, Martin.
Super close, isn't it? This could be either way. She's dropped into the red. How far back? 700s back. There's her coach Pierre Luders on the right-hand side. He's won on this track. Name me a track that he hasn't won on. I'll wait. Pierre Luders loves coaching Bree Walker. He says, I never have to tell her anything twice. She just goes out and does it. And eventually in St. Moritz, after 5 years of not quite getting it, it all came together, but she's got a big smile on her face. That was a good run from Brianna Walker.
Really was. There's that tricky exit out of 9, working the sled back over, getting the right entry there to Kreisel. Now the exit out of 14 takes just a tiny, tiny little brush. Bunkers don't even hit, though. Solid run, Bree.
You can see how much moisture is in the air. It's a foggy, damp morning here in Altenberg. Kaylee Humphries leads from Bree Walker. Catty Bile again in a podium position after the first 10 sleds. But here is the woman who has won the last 2 races. 2 silvers behind Kaylee Humphries in 22-23, and she has won over the last 2 seasons. Lara Nolte.
Big knee drives out of Laura here, jumping up into the sled, getting her run started 6:05. Solid start there in this battle for the Crystal Globe. So at the moment in the green, and this is also, I should mention, a home track for the Germans. So they've had lots of runs here. They know it better than most of the other athletes. Will that pay dividends in the race here today with 900ths of a second lead now in this upper labyrinth?
It doesn't really seem to matter where Lara Nolte is at the moment and in what sled she's in. She is in the medals. She's missed the podium once this year. That was last week in St. Moritz, only 6th. And if that's your worst result of the year, you know you're having a good one. And look at the advantage. It's tiny, but she's keeping it alive.
She is. There's that tricky 14. Ooh, little tap, little sideways, 500ths. This could be close.
It could be very close. She may not have the speed to stay ahead of Kaylee Humphries at the line. 400ths in it.
59.47, just ebbed away right at the bottom there. 400ths of a second behind Kaylee Humphries. That is a narrow margin, and only 300ths ahead of Bree Walker for that Crystal Globe first place finish.
Top 3 covered by 700ths of a second. It is the very slightest advantage at the moment to Lara Nolte.
Here we go. So that's curve 4, the Omega. First wave, the dip, then the second wave gets on that steer really early. Then the exit out of 14 here. That's where she had took the little tap. That's where there's that little skid sideways, and then a second tap. That's where she lost the speed and then just fell behind by those 400ths of a second.
Yeah, tiny, tiny margins. All right, 1 more to go. Not her favorite track, but she's clearly in the mix. And Margot Bock might well be as well. Now, Margot learned to drive in La Plagne. One thing we know about La Plagne, you really have to drive it. She isn't the fastest starter in the field, but she has got the hands of a surgeon. She is so clean on the track.
She is. That La Plan track, notoriously difficult, also one of the most difficult in the world. Lots of double pressures there. Getting off the line with a 6:27 here. So Margot, with a little bit of work to do, we're going to see how well can she bring it back. A little bit of the banana line, 2 to 3. That's not the fastest or most direct. Into 4 now. Those 2 waves in there. Early on to 5. Looking clean, but she's got work to do.
3/10 back, and that is that start deficit unwinding down the track, following her along. If she can come cleanly out of corner 9, she has a little flop, maybe build some speed in the Kreisel. 3rd best speed already.
Yep, that should help her. That's going to help her cause. Exiting Kreisel gets a little bit of a tap there, not entirely clean, but letting it run. Good speed, 2nd best speed. Trying to climb up into the top 6 if she can have a good bottom of the course.
It's not the driver who drives the most that wins the race, it's the driver who drives the least, who fights the sled least. And Margot has that in spades. 5th fastest speed, but 7th at the line, 59.83.
Yep, so just 1 spot out of that wider podium, that top 6 that we call here in the sport, and only 0.02 of a second behind Melissa from Canada. So really in a tight battle there to get on that wider podium.
A 10th ahead of Olympic silver medalist Alana Myers-Taylor. So a good run from Margot Bock.
Yep, there we see just a little bit of a flop and then a slider's right tap. And then, oh, that looks not quite as clean as she would have wanted. Then the 11-12 transition, a little bit early there on to 12. Looking at it again, yep, just a little bit rough, maybe not as smooth as possible, but she did build good speed all the way down.
I think the drivers are finding there's not quite as much grip on the runners as there was in training. Both days of training were misty like today, and they were definitely slower. Next up, Cynthia Appiah, our start record holder here, 5.92. We've had a 5.94 from Keisha Love. Let's see if Sim can break her own start record. That'll be going some this morning.
Oh, 6:06, so just a little bit off her own pace, her own start record there, but in the green at the moment with all that velocity. So takes a nice straight line, 2 to 3, then 3 into 4, a little early there onto 4, and nice entry there, 5 into the upper labyrinth.
4th fastest start, but she only had the 7th best velocity in the first speed trap, so not getting quite as much energy into the sled as she might like. It's getting a little more misty here, down into the Kreisel.
Yep, here's the Kreisel. Ooh, big 2nd pressure, big 3rd pressure there. Oh, takes the flop and the hit off of it with all those big oscillations, and only the 11th best speed now.
You saw how much she went up and down compared to Lara Nolter and Kaylee Humphries, who were fairly flat around the Kreisel.
Right, that was a nice line, 14 to 15. She'll take that. Good entry there to 17, crossing the finish line. Just ducks under the 1 minute mark, 59.59, just over half a second back.
Yeah. So her coaches, Lyndon Rush, Justin Cripps, applauding that, but 9th place behind Alana Myers-Taylor by 0.06 of a second.
Yep, so sorry, 59.99 there for her, dipping under the 1 minute mark, pushing the sled up to the finish line there. Yeah, just a few errors there, creeping into her run, not getting it quite as clean as she would have liked. This is Kreisel, big oscillation, closest sled we've seen to the roof there on that 2nd oscillation, high there on the 3rd, and then gets this 4th little pickup right there at the end, and that's what caused errors.
And think of the energy going out of it. If you hold a bucket of water and swing it around in a circle, if your arm's out straight, it hurts your shoulder less than if you're waving it up and down, because there's more energy involved, and it's the same in the Kreisel. The more you wave up and down, the more energy it takes out of the sled, the slower you are on the exit. Next up, Kim Kilicki for Germany in what will be her last ever World Cup monobob race. After the Olympics, she is retiring from the sport, she says, so let's take a chance to see her for a final time in the mono.
Yep, 6:26 here for Kim on her home track, one of her home tracks here in Germany, trying to have the swan song finish to her career. A little bit of a skid there before 4, big waves there, but cleans it up nicely going into this upper labyrinth here, about a 0.3 of a second deficit.
she's always been, from the moment she arrived in World Cup, the same time as Laura Nolte, she's always been a podium contender in women's bobsleigh. She's not a strong enough starter to really fire it off among the big guns in the monobob. Doesn't like the feel of the sled either. It doesn't work for her. So this will be, I'm sure she'll be glad to see the end of monobob. Maybe the whole sliding fraternity, though, she'd like to stay around a bit. But
yep, drifting a little bit farther back in the Allianz branded sled here for Germany, and she'll cross the finish line 1 minute 40 hundredths of a second, about 1 second behind our leader, Kaylee Humphries.
yeah, so Kim Kalicki down in 12th position, and that's pretty much par for the season. Best result of 10th place in the season opener in Cortina, and everything else has been from 12th down to 17th.
Yep, so just not quite finding the speed, getting hung up a little bit there. Those left runners just hanging onto the corner a bit long. That's corner 9, and then just flopping off, taking that tap. Not the first athlete to do that. We've certainly seen plenty of others, but then just skidding, left, right before that entry to Kreisel. There it is in Kreisel. Waves, as you mentioned, not as big as before, but a little wave from her. Not fully satisfied, I don't think.
That body language tells you everything you need to know, doesn't it? Now, on the other end of the experience scale, Debbie Annan for Switzerland's second year of sliding in the World Cup for Martin Annan's daughter. Only her 13th mono start. The 23-year-old with a good season behind her. Best result of the season was last week in St. Moritz. She finished in 8th place. She has actually led after the first heats this season.
Wow, running it really deep, almost to the end of the grooves there. 6:27, trying to get as much speed into the sled as possible. Drifting now, this is exiting 2 early off of 2, but gets a nice straight line into 3 here before entering the tricky Omega.
Again, she has inherited some of her dad's driving ability. What she's not is a massively explosive powerhouse off the line, so she needs to get those long levers moving over the distance to try and give her speed.
Yep, here it is. That's 9. Oh, takes a tap, takes a double tap. Middle entry there into Kreisel. 10th best speed, 109.8. Not the best speed there. Decent exit, though. Just a little tap now, the tricky lower labyrinth.
Again, this is the final World Cup race before the end of the season and the Winter Games. Her teammate Melly Hasler has opted not to race here, preserve herself, her health and her equipment. And Debbie Annan may well be just erring slightly on conservatism for the setup. 60.46, just 600ths behind Kim Kalicki. So again, outside of the top half dozen, we've got a massive log jam of sleds who are all but inseparable.
Yeah, so Debbie here slotting just outside the top dozen there, currently in 13th place. Had the 12th best start and the 13th best finish. So she'll be looking to improve on that on the second run here as she gives us a little wave. Here's the shot out of 9, that tricky 9. Gets hung up just a little bit on the end, takes not just the 1 tap, but the 2 taps, and then gets into Kreisel middle late, which is the wrong side of the straightaway that you want to enter Kreisel in. So there, inside Kreisel. Oh, flattens it out a lot there. Had to do a lot of steering on the second pressure, then waves it again on the third, and just maybe a bit too much steering in the wrong spot. Didn't quite have the speed.
You saw that shot there, her hands sort of braced on her knees. Lots of drivers have their fists together, knuckles to knuckle in the center, but it is entirely up to what the driver likes. Next up, Inola Blatti, World Cup rookie this season, and a real find for Switzerland, has blended into the World Cup field superbly. 6.16, so a 10th faster than her teammate Debbie Annan.
Yep, solid start, entirely respectable. Nice straight line, 2 into 3. A little bit of a skid off of 3 before getting into Omega, and then now entering this upper labyrinth, 10th on the splits and about 2/10ths back.
And she's used to winning Inola as well. She was the Europe Cup champion in Monobob, the second tier of sliding last season, and runner-up in the women's bobsleigh.
Yeah, 11th best speed here, 108.6, not the fastest velocity. Takes the tap out of Kreisel as well, but improves over to 6th best velocity now.
Yep, ahead of her teammate Debbie Annan. So this looks like being the top Swiss sled. Does she break the top 10? She's on her way to doing so. Nice clean run through the final couple of corners. Could be 9th ahead of Cynthia Pia. 11th, just behind Georgetta Popescu, and by just, I mean 1/100th of a second behind the Romanian slider.
Yep, and then less than a 10th of a second ahead of Keisha Love. So as you mentioned, some really tight racing here in Altenberg as Enola gets out of her sled and pushes it just up to the off-ramp there with the help of her teammate.
Yep. So all the push athletes helping out as sled dogs. The drivers call this lonely Bob, because you don't have your teammate with you at the line. It's all about you. The spotlight is entirely on the driver. Steps in, drops in nicely.
And the 11 to 12 transition on early. You can see the head bobsledding. It's bobbing back and forth on that transition. Yeah. And a smile and a thumbs up. That's good to see.
For China, Ying Qing. Now, she's the only Chinese slider in the field this weekend. So Wai Mingming not racing here. Ying Qing remains in the field. Wai is actually the better placed of the two Chinese athletes at this stage. But she's only 24 points ahead of Ying, and by even starting the race, Ying guarantees herself to be the top Chinese slider in the field. So if they only get one sled for the games, that is going to be potentially the deciding factor. 6:16, same start as Enola Blatti of Switzerland.
Yep, already in the red though. Gets that entry nice and early into 4. Comes off of the Omega, clean into 5, clean 6, 7 here. A little early, but not bad at all. Currently sitting in 11th.
So where is the speed then? Ying Qing not carrying enough of it into the Kreisel. She drops out to 12th position on the splits, and again, big waves.
Smooth exit though. That was a very clean exit off of Kreisel. She took the sled off at the right spot, got the sled in the right direction. Here's that 14 exit, also very smooth, very clean.
On the wrong side coming into 15, so that means she has to work harder for 16. This big, long left-hand looping run up to the line. 60.50, 400s behind Debbie Annan.
Yep, and tied, it looks like with Simi from Nigeria, actually.
Oh yeah, we do
100.
have a dead heat, absolutely. So Simi Adiagbo and Ying Qing, Nigeria and China. Tied in 15th spot.
Some close racing. As we saw in the races yesterday with Skeleton, her coach there shouting her off the line. That's a great shot of the helmet too. You can see a number of these helmets, they have a little spoiler on the back there just to improve those aerodynamics, trying to get every 100th of a second wherever they can.
Yeah, whatever works in Formula One, they go, oh, we'll steal that if we can. And that is affordable technology, at least at bobsledding. Coach Yanis Minans has been doing such a great job with the Chinese sliders. Now our second Aussie, Sarah Blizzard. And this is nominative determinism at its finest, obviously, particularly in Winterberg a couple of weeks ago when that's what we were sliding in. So Sarah, the younger of the two Aussie drivers, former brakewoman for Bree Walker. On the left, her coach, Anne van Nieuwenhuis, who is also coaching Kelly van Petegem. In and down, 6:45 start.
6:45 start, among the slower starts that we've seen here in the field. So she does have a lot of work cut out for her if she's going to manage to make her way up into the top 15 or top 10. That's not going to help though. That skid off of 3, big wave and early into 5 as well too. Oh, and falling to about 0.7 of a second back.
Yeah, lots of skids at the back of the sled. You can see every time she leads it onto a corner, the back disagrees with her. And so she is fighting it all the way down.
Yeah, that was a big flop there off of 9, and then a big skid going into Kreisel. Cleans it up on the exit though, but she scrubbed a lot of speed there.
Well, spends a lot of time with Kelly van Petegem of Belgium because they're both coached by Anne van Nieuwenhuis. And Kelly also had a lot of trouble with the back of the sled, so maybe they've figured that after training, slightly fatter runners would work. Not sure that that is the case today. But across the line, she is behind Van Petegem. So Sarah Blizzard in 18th place. The good news for Sarah is that there are 20 sleds, so she will get a second run. And that has been a major part of her development. She's not on Europe Cup, she's not in North America or in the Asian Cup in the learning phases. She is battling the biggest sliders in the field here in the World Cup and making that second heat is a major target for this season.
It is, and I do have to say the bottom half of the course was really clean, but the problem just crept in all here on the top of the track. That is 4. Now the transition 4 into 5, little early there onto 5, and this is where it really started falling away. That is the exit of 9. 9, that little extra pressure and a half. She was too high there on the exit. Bam! Big hit on the sled's right side, then a skid going sideways. Tokyo drifting it down that straightaway. That is not the fast line, unfortunately.
And you saw the energy bouncing her up out of the seat. I mean, that's a big hit. 2 to go then in the first of our 2 heats here. The final World Cup of the season for the women's mono. Victoria Ternanska of Slovakia is our next slider. And Vicky, another of our youth Olympians from 2020. She was the silver medalist behind Georgeta Popescu. 6:45 start, exactly the same as we've seen from Sarah Blizzard.
Yep, indeed. So it's currently sitting in 18th spot, going 3, and also takes that skid off of 3 before 4. 4, taking the waves. Better entry than Sarah, though, into 5 here, and smoother so far through the upper labyrinth.
Again, does look a little like the tail of the sled is skidding around. But she's doing a good job of handling, has that little late exit out of 9, runner check to straighten it up into the Kreisel.
Kreisel now, 15th best speed, takes that 3rd pressure, nice exit, just the smallest brush there, still 15th best, drifting back by just over a second here though.
Well, she's ahead of Sarah Blizzard, trying to catch Kelly van Petegem, who's 1.2 behind at the line, so that looks like she may not quite get there. 18th at the finish, 61.03.
So 1.6 seconds back. Not quite the run I imagine she was looking for. Pretty nice on the bottom half as well. Quite similar there to Sarah Blizzard then. And then just having to push the sled up to that outlet on the track.
And that shows that she had less speed than our front runners. It's only her 2nd World Cup this season. She finished 14th in Sigulda in Latvia. And late exit out of 9.
Yep, just hung up on the corner a bit too long. Those left runners staying on the corner, and then she has to make those corrections, but admirable job making the corrections and straightening it out before Kreisel.
So our final sled is a welcome back. Welcome back to the World Cup, Bianca Ribby. First run of the season in World Cup for the Canadian. Her last World Cup was St. Moritz in January 2025, towards the end of last season. She also raced in the World Champs in Lake Placid. She's been plying her trade in the North America's Cup, where she has slayed them in both disciplines. Never off the podium this season. 6:28 start for Ribby.
Yep, solid start there. And yes, as you mentioned, Martin, she has been cleaning house on the North America's Cup Tour. Never off the podium, and most of those have been gold medals. But she takes that skid there off of 3, as we've seen a lot of these late athletes in the field do. And she's falling back by about 0.4 of a second. Takes that little tap there before 7, and trying to get through this tricky corner 9. Also hung up. Ooh, falls off, and a little tap, but corrects it before Kreisel.
16th at the start, up to 14th into the Kreisel with 11 best speed, and she comes out nicely, straight down the center into 11, little late onto 12.
Yep, now the 13-14 combination, which can be tricky, but she nails it. Straight shot out of 14. Well done.
All right, 8/10ths back, dropping back from 16th at the start to 17th on the splits at the line. 17th place finish for Bianca Ribby. She's 200s behind Simi Adiagbo and Ying Qing of China. She is 600s behind Debbie Annan. So there is definite opportunities for making up ground. And again, jetting in late from Lake Placid, where she raced last weekend. So limited on sleep, practice time, and everything else. And Bianca stepping in. She's the 3rd best rated Canadian in the points, and that is why she has taken over this final World Cup race from Kristen Bujnovski.
Yep, those critical points, trying to get as high of a ranking as possible before the end of the season, before the Olympic selections are officially made. That's the line in Kreisel. Big second pressure, big 3rd pressure, highest 3rd pressure we've seen from any sled here in the field so far, but gets it out cleanly from Kreisel.
So Bianca Ribby done and down, and that is the end of our first heat of the Monobob. And in front, we have a two-time winner. In second place, we also have a two-time winner. And in third place, we have a three-time winner this season. You want class? We've got class. Kaylee Humphries, double winner back in the 22-23 season 3 years ago. Can she make it a third win here on her favourite track of them all? Well, this is the way it looks, and it is those three, let's be honest, who are in the podium positions. Kaylee Humphries, Lara Nolte, Bree Walker, 700s. Katty Bile leading the chase ahead of Lisa Buchwitz and Melissa Lottholz. Margot Bock in 7th place, just a 10th ahead of Alana Myers-Taylor, the Olympic silver medalist. And lots of potential for change. Ying Ching and Simiadi Agbo, will they be tied together? Seems unlikely, but hey, you know, this is Altenberg. Unlikely is its middle name. So you're going to have to watch the second heat and find out what happens. And that comes up at 11:30 Central European, 10:30 GMT, and 05:30 Eastern. And that will be in 50 minutes from now. We'll see you then. Auf Wiedersehen.